Other members. Thank you very much. Minister.
Honourable Chairperson of the NCOP, Mr. President, honourable members, fellow South Africans. On Friday night, President Ramaphosa set out a broad and inspiring vision for the economy that prioritizes jobs, young people, and economic inclusion. There is a new mood of optimism and buoyancy in the country. In the weeks and months ahead, we must build on that optimism and translate it into more employment, a stronger economy, and deeper transformation. There are positive signs of a confidence boost. 5 weeks ago, the competition authorities approved a transaction that will see Old Mutual reversing its decision of 20 years ago to make London its global headquarters. And subject to shareholder approval, they will come back home, use the JSE for its primary stock exchange listing, make Joburg the global headquarters of its biggest businesses, bring high-level finance jobs back to South Africa, commit to a new fund of 500 million rand for developing small businesses, ensure no jobs are lost as a result of this homecoming, and take its BEE shareholding to the best of class in the industry. 1 month ago, a foreign investor committed to government and the regulator to invest at least 6 billion rand to modernize the local Caltex refinery and to increase the ownership of South Africans in the business if its bid to buy the Chevron Caltex local businesses is approved. A few weeks ago in Davos, the CEO of Coca-Cola briefed us on steps they are taking to implement the commitment to localize more of their shareholding by selling 30% of equity in the local operation to Black South Africans, including workers, and to maintain current employment levels for a 5-year period. And the CEO of AB InBev, another large investor, committed to speed up opportunities for black farmers in the company's barley and hops supply chain. On the morning of SONA itself, Japan's Isuzu Motors announced their decision to take 100% ownership of an assembly plant in the Eastern Cape, while Chinese car maker BAIC reached the halfway mark in constructing the first new light manufacturing assembly plant built in more than 40 years in Nelson Mandela Bay. These examples, honourable members, show the positive impact of improved business confidence and effective partnerships and the opportunities that smart investors see in the local market. Jobs remain our #1 priority. There are currently 16.2 million South Africans working. Last year, the pace of job creation was particularly slow. While 100,000 new jobs were created, this lags behind the much larger number of young people who leave school and university and need to find economic opportunities. That is our challenge. Unemployment leaves enormous human resources out of the economy. Millions of young, potentially productive South Africans who want to build this country. Rising inequality is damaging to the economy and toxic to social cohesion. To address this, President Ramaphosa's SONA speech set out a vision on how inclusive growth, employment, and bold transformation, but also the how-to, namely fixing institutions that are broken or have become sources of corruption, building partnerships with the private sector, organized labor, and communities, and actually implementing our plans, the National Development Plan, the jobs drivers, getting things done. To achieve this vision of SONA, we must work differently. It requires renewal within the state. In the year ahead, to drive job creation and radical economic transformation, we will focus on expanding our infrastructure, deepening industrialization, greater economic inclusion, promoting innovation, and stepped up African regional integration. Our macroeconomic policy framework will promote faster, more inclusive growth and give priority to job creation. And we'll implement sector plans that unlocks job drivers in the economy, sectors with opportunity to expand the GDP and create employment. In the past year, government invested more than 1 billion rand each working day in new infrastructure like schools, clinics, power stations, roads, and new universities. The country moved from an electricity shortage just 2 years ago to a surplus today, which provides an excellent base to bring energy to the homes of more South Africans and attract investors who need energy for their production processes. In the next 14 months, the nation will invest more than 300 billion rand as we turn the country into a construction site and build between 100 and 150 new schools, increase the number of tertiary student accommodation beds by over 10,000, increase the supply of energy by more than 1,000 megawatts, which includes green energy, and connect close to 1 million more residents to electricity in their homes. Lay 600 kilometers of new transmission lines to connect the excluded to the energy grid. Build more than 100,000 new houses. Complete 20 health facilities, including a new hospital. Accelerate water infrastructure. Assemble 480 new locomotives and 15,000 new taxis here locally using South African labor, and expand fiber optic cables and link more citizens to high-speed internet access. Economic infrastructure, including tourism infrastructure, will be prioritized. The team that President Ramaphosa spoke of to fast-track new projects will also help to finalize a longer-term project pipeline, and budget processes are being reviewed to address the multi-year cycles of spending in infrastructure. To fund more economic infrastructure and industrialization, we will engage the financial sector to help unlock fresh resources, and the first meeting will take place within 3 weeks, part of the discussion on an investment pact. While we need to raise more funding, we must also ensure that no rand of public money is diverted to corrupt purposes or fraudulent tenders. Corruption costs us in the form of lower growth, fewer jobs, less localization when we buy locomotives from Spain, fewer houses or classrooms that are built. State-owned corporations like Eskom, Prasa, Transnet, and Denel have been the focus of a number of serious allegations. To root out corruption, government will ensure that key infrastructure-linked projects are reviewed and Cabinet receives reports on actions by law enforcement agencies to recover monies improperly paid out, and implicated officials are charged. Last year, the PICC and the IDC already started work on the economic cost of corruption and measures to address these, with a strong focus of SONA on stamping out corruption and state capture. We will do more to combat this cancer in our economy. The fraud in the accounts of Steinhoff resulted in damage to the savings of workers and the reputations of corporations. It points to the serious deficiencies in the work of company auditors and come hot on the heels of questionable conduct by KPMG, McKinsey, and other private sector companies in the state capture project, as well as widespread collusion and price fixing in many industries. The Competition Act has been amended to make corporate collusion a criminal offense for which people must go to jail. Our country needs a renewal in both the public and private sectors to address the corrosive effects of unethical business practices. Government will step up the review of appropriate guidelines and actions, and we call on the private sector and professional standard bodies to do the same. To transform the construction industry, 5 of the top 7 construction companies, Mr. President, will complete partnership agreements to ensure the entry of black South Africans in the sector and expand their turnover. Murray & Roberts has sold its construction business to a black-owned company. New agreements between industry players to expand annual turnover of 7 black-owned construction companies to roughly 7 billion rand a year within 7 years is currently being considered by the Competition Tribunal. To support economic inclusion, people-centered radical socio-economic transformation, government is taking steps to boost youth entrepreneurs and black industrialists, to address levels of economic concentration, establish a national minimum wage, and strengthen collective bargaining and broad-based empowerment. These efforts are intended to build greater levels of social solidarity within the country, to address the deep levels of inequality, and to provide an economic underpinning to the vision of a nation united. They are the steps to achieve the Freedom Charter goal that the people shall share in the country's wealth. The Competition Amendment Bill was published on 1 December last year and will be brought to Parliament this year. The bill expands the mandate and the powers of the competition authorities to address high levels of economic concentration in South Africa. So we build an economy in which young entrepreneurs and black South Africans are not locked out. Provisions addressing the dominance by large corporations have been drafted so that small businesses are nurtured. Protections on employment have been enhanced to support workers during mergers. Cabinet approved the bill for public consultation, and we're in discussion with key stakeholders. The national minimum wage to be introduced on 1 May that Honorable Mthembu spoke to will not only lift millions of working families out of poverty and promote economic inclusion, it will also be a wage and spending boost to the economy, stimulating aggregate demand. If we want to capture the economic benefits of that boost, we must encourage retailers to stock locally made products and consumers to buy proudly South African products. We have written to representatives of the largest retailers this morning to invite them to meet with us to discuss ways in which we can increase the range of locally made goods on our shop shelves. Mr. President, youth enterprise and opportunity will be promoted through public and private sector initiatives. Our focus will be on 4 main areas: skills, exposure to work, jobs themselves, and entrepreneurial opportunities. In addition to the new investment in higher education to be announced on Wednesday, over the next 12 months, the IDC and CIFA will commit 1.3 billion rand for youth-empowered enterprises. The Youth Employment Service of the private sector will recruit the first intake of youth in the next few months, and it will be scaled up over the next 3 years. And government will publicize these and many other programs to young people through a road show in all 9 provinces. And following discussions at NEDLAC, we'll release information on the impact of the Youth Employment Accord and further actions during Youth Month. Black industrialists, honourable members, will be supported actively in productive enterprises so that we move away from a model that relies simply on black South Africans owning 5% or 10% in an existing company. This emphasis on building new productive capacity and linking this with transformation and our vision is critical. To support this, funding of some 30 billion rand is available over the next 3 years across government in the DFIs, in government departments, and we'll integrate this with the activities of state-owned companies and the private sector. In the year ahead, government will open discussion with business and labor on measures to promote greater worker ownership of shares in enterprises and inclusion of workers on the boards of companies, so that we build our own inclusive South African economic model and deepen the partnership in the economy. Complementing this will be our efforts to promote township and rural enterprises and undertake the structural economic reforms. In the mining sector, we will move away from the standoff between government and the industry and forge a new cooperation that focuses on greater local processing of minerals, deeper transformation of the sector, particularly aimed at giving workers a stake in the industry. We will work closely with communities, workers and companies as we finalize the mining charter, and proposals for a sovereign wealth fund will be worked on in the period ahead. Industrial expansion is vital. Government will launch a new auto sector scheme this year, focusing on jobs and localization of component manufacturing, and greater efforts to expand labor-intensive industries such as clothing and textiles, agriculture, and agro-processing. Trade with the rest of Africa already accounts for more than 250,000 direct jobs in South Africa. We will use a combination of the proposed free trade area, investment, and cross-border infrastructure facilities to deepen our economic relations with neighbors. To support innovation, government will finalize a country strategy on the fourth industrial revolution and expand partnerships with the private sector, universities, and research institutions. Honorable members, technology is changing economies and societies in deep and fundamental ways. Retail processes are being automated that will impact on jobs in shops and banks. More distance learning may increasingly replace classroom teaching. Medical technologies will change the way in which health problems are diagnosed and treatment is delivered. Smart robots will change factories. Driverless cars will impact on urban transport. At the base of this is the development in artificial intelligence and the use of big data. These technologies will be disruptive at the workplace and in society. Yes, they can create new digital divides in and between countries, but they also provide enormous potential benefits. And properly steered, we can harness technology to our developmental goals and in the service of our people. We should not focus on building a 20th century economy when competitors are building the economy of the future. The digital economy will be a key driver of the fourth industrial revolution, and thus bringing data costs down will be a priority in the year ahead. In the next 12 months, honorable members, to get South Africa ready for the fourth industrial revolution, we will develop a skills framework for the new jobs of the future and a social plan to address the disruptions to labor markets and workplaces that flow from new technologies. We will invest in R&D to create the intellectual property base for our economy to benefit from the potential of these new technologies and provide funding for venture capital projects involved in these new technologies. And we'll bring down the cost of data through the competition market inquiry into data services. We'll expand infrastructure through finalizing the release of new spectrum and complete digital migration. And we'll conclude key policies, including the entry of cross-border e-commerce in South Africa. To drive this process and promote the wider partnership we need in society, we will work with the Digital Industrial Revolution Commission. And through the Office of the Speaker, we are arranging a session to brief Parliament on work undertaken on the implications of the fourth industrial revolution. Honorable members, I have outlined some of the steps that we will take to give effect to the vision of SONA. These efforts will reignite confidence and growth, and they will boost investment. They're an essential part of our growth plan and will also help South Africa's sovereign rating so that we move from sub-investment rating to a country that's ready to work, ready to do business, ready for investment. Two key things will define the approach of government. The first is synergy and integration. Our interventions will have limited impact if there's simply a series of separate actions. We therefore plan for the different actions on youth, on the fourth industrial revolution, on infrastructure, on industrial expansion, all to be combined and integrated. The second is partnership. We will actively involve the private sector and workers through the unions in the economic renewal plans. The Summit on Jobs and the conference with investors are key forums for building that partnership. Some opposition speakers have criticized this as too many summits and conferences, that we don't have any plans, that summits are not enough to fix South Africa. We think the concrete plans we have outlined on deconcentration of the economy, on infrastructure, on industrialization, on the fourth industrial revolution, the National Development Plan is a powerful reply to that criticism. We will convene summits and hold meetings with social partners because we want to do things differently, to draw people in to become part of the solution, to mobilize resources that are outside government, because the challenges we face require that all South Africans are part of that solution. That Tuma Mina becomes widely subscribed as a call to national service by those who love their country, black and white, young and old, urban and rural. In this spirit, we will work closely with social partners on a broader accord to underpin the economic recovery. Successful social partnering requires trust building, trust between South Africans, trust between business and labor, trust between citizens and government. Development is not about government doing everything. It is to give our people the freedom to bloom, to unleash and let the talents of South Africans shine, to equip the young with skills so that they can shape the economy, to protect the vulnerable, to create conditions for decent work opportunities to be created on scale. In this year that we celebrate 100 years since the birth of Madiba, I am reminded that in 2007, Madiba was given the International Labour Organization's inaugural Decent Work Prize. And ILO Director General Juan Somavia, when handing over the prize, said, "If any person embodies the values of decent work, it is President Mandela. As a lawyer, an activist, a prisoner, a politician, and a statesman, Nelson Mandela has lived the life and the ideals of the ILO through his lifelong pursuit of dialogue, understanding, fairness, social justice, and above all, dignity. These ideals and values are what the ANC-led government will be giving effect to in the year ahead." Thank you.